now Citrus County's top political podcast.
At some point you look around, and you're the only one.
It's pretty good.
And just like that, the perspective shifts.
Paging Bobby Winsler to the microphone. On in 3, 2.
Welcome in, coming to you from the Concurrent Media Network in the heart of Citrus County. However you're making us part of your day, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, or through the Concurrent mobile app, or on our website, sure glad you're joining us. Today's show is brought to you by the Concurrent, your newest outlet for Citrus County opinion-based news. Check out the Concurrent, read, listen, watch, discuss at theconcurrent.com. Welcome to the conversation. Today's show sponsored by us. We're in the middle of a meetings marathon right now, and I love it. We had a commission workshop yesterday, a Crystal River City Council meeting last night, a special commission meeting this morning, the regular commission meeting an hour from now, and a school board meeting today at 4. For many of these entities, it's their first meeting in 3 weeks, or a day shy of a month in the school board's case, which makes sense because of summer. So I'm not saying that to be critical of their schedules, but just to reiterate, there hasn't been much going on. There was a 2-year-long court dispute finally settled over some property. Local attorney John Eden tried to annex from the county into the city of Inverness, a process that was blocked by a judge recently. I do plan on writing on that. I just haven't yet. Inverness had also discussed their upcoming tax rate, in which they can't vote to raise the millage rate, something Crystal River discussed last night, but they will either roll back the millage rate, effectively keeping your property tax bill the same, or they will keep the millage rate the same, which will make your property tax bill go up in proportional to the assessed value gained in your home. Apologies if that was hard to follow. My mind is in meeting marathon mode, which convolutes everything. So let me try that again in short. Crystal River, property tax rate likely to increase. Inverness, tax rate can only stay the same or decrease, but if the rate stays the same, your bill might go up, assuming your home increased in value. How'd I do? Well, there's more. If you're in roughly 94% of the county population like me, who lives outside of the two cities, Commissioner Ron Kitchen said yesterday that he would only support a 3% rollback of the millage rate, effectively keeping your property tax bill the same, although it's unclear if his usually less conservative colleagues are going to feel the same and vote that way. But that's where we're at with the property tax rates. I am going to recap some of my ongoing criticism of the Chronicle that I've been writing about recently, with specific aim at the truly awful sound-off section, and why Saturday morning showed us that it's time for that section to go. But let's start with a focus on the county. When I was younger, if I had to apologize to somebody and I didn't want to, or I had to ask permission for something that I thought I should have the autonomy to do myself, I developed a bit of a tone. And I'm sure you did too. If you've ever heard a parent say, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, then you know what I'm talking about. I had someone whose opinion I value very much, someone who's never held local public office or appointed office, but who had an accomplished private sector career. They said to me yesterday after the commission's special meeting that this board is the worst we've ever had, citing the muddled expenses with the shelter that continue to rise, yet the inability to increase the CCSO budget just a little bit to include Marine patrols or body cam expenses. I get the sentiment, and certainly I'm usually the first to step in and defend CCSO, but I have to disagree with the take, particularly with the animosity directed toward this board. In an episode or two ago, I quoted a line from one of Chronicle publisher Jerry Mulligan's commentary in which he said the board was unaccountable. And that struck me as odd as well. In his case, it was like he doesn't watch the meetings, because unaccountable, there are plenty of words to describe the board, some of them not so flattering. I used boring or infuriating, but there are good ones too. And whether you're using the good ones or the bad ones, unaccountable doesn't seem to fit. In the case of this other person's opinion, again, I get where they're coming from, but I think it comes down to style more than substance. The substance, and I may disagree with a lot of what this board is doing, from continually raising fees to the way the CARES Act was dispersed and everything to do with the animal shelter outside of moving forward on a new one. But the way they are getting there, from the discussion to the procedure, it is exactly what you would want out of a functional board. Let me put it this way. I may disagree with the outcome, but I think the process is operating well. And in a representative democracy, that's a pretty high standard to clear. I definitely wouldn't say the same of Congress, and I don't even know if I'd say the same about the Inverness City Council, but that's a discussion for a different topic. So, even though the decisions aren't what I want, meaning it's not what they're saying, I do see where people would take exception to how they're saying it. Not what they're saying, how they're saying it. Commissioner Ron Kitchen tries to explain the processes of the board, which is helpful, but it comes off as condescending. And honestly, I don't know how to fix that. He also can have a short temper, even when he's being complimentary. During the discussion yesterday, for example, about the additional Marine units, Commissioner Kitchen said something like, "I know, Sheriff, if we gave you 30 units, you would use them effectively. Same as if we gave you 50 Marine units. The issue isn't your effective use of resources. The issue is the cost." That's a compliment, but it's one you have to work kind of hard to see. The peak eye roll moment of not what you say, but how you say it, for me, is when the sheriff had addressed Commissioner Ruthie Schleybaugh, who followed up with a question, and in his second mention, the sheriff responded, addressing her as Ms. Schleybaugh, to which she interjected, "Excuse me, but it's Mrs. Schleybaugh, not Ms." Look, I'm Dr. Winsler. I have a PhD from the University of Florida that took me 4 hard years to earn. But if someone calls me Mr. Winsler, I'm not correcting them, out of fear that I'd get stuffed in my middle school locker. Well, and now, actually, that I think about it, there is a group of people that I would correct, and that's my students. In the organizational flowchart of higher education, the students are my subordinates in that I am the authority figure of a classroom setting. And maybe this is why I can't quite put my finger on why it feels condescending. The sheriff, just like the clerk, the property appraiser, supervisor of elections, and tax collector, are constitutional officers, meaning they report to the governor even though their budget is set by the county. The commission only has 2 employees, county administrator and the county attorney. And I bet both of them would tell you in moments they're reminded of that power dynamic. Yet, in the county chambers, all people have a tendency to be addressed as subordinates by the commission. And this is where an otherwise good board gets a bad reputation. This can be toward people outside their organizational structure, such as constitutional officers like the sheriff, and on occasion, the condescension with members of the public who, in my opinion, rank above the commissioners in the flow chart of power. The meeting yesterday positively resolved an issue of replacing the call-aided dispatch, or a CAD system, for emergency services. And it did set in motion a plan to study how to fund more marine patrols and body cameras, from looking at the use of boat ramp fees to keeping a closer eye on upcoming federal funding. It was a good meeting, but it took me effort to see that because of the ways of how some of the discussions went. Sometimes it's not about what you say, but how you say it. Getting to topic 2, but first, be among the first to advertise with the Citrus County Concurrent. We offer a variety of ways to reach your next customer, including website graphics, audio reads, and even traditional print advertising. Get in early, lock in your rate, even as our audience grows, and it's growing. Special consideration for donation spots given to nonprofits as well. Contact advertising at yourconcurrent.com for more information. That's advertising at yourconcurrent.com to learn more. Let's get to this. A lie can travel around the world and back again while the truth is lacing up its boots. This quote is usually attributed to Mark Twain, although a few people on the internet claim it was Winston Churchill. In this morning's letters to the editor, there was a claim that unemployment money isn't keeping people out of the workforce. It cited an academic or two. I've seen other studies that show people do return to the workforce when unemployment drops to a certain level, so I'm inclined to dispute the claim for now, but I will look into it more. I do think, though, we have 2 untruths that circulate around our county now. The first is that the county doesn't pave roads. The commissions from 2016 until 2020 allocated much higher annual rates toward repaving roads than previous commissions, $3 to $4 million a year rather than $2 million a year. It's unclear if this current commission is going to prioritize roads in anything other than the rhetoric it's already used, but it doesn't seem likely unless that road is a bike trail. So the idea that the county doesn't want to pave roads may return to being true. You could also argue that the commission wasn't doing enough, although these things are incremental in nature. The allocations show, though, for 4 years, the commission did increase funding to repaving roads in an aggressive way. So the first is an untruth, at least over the last 4 years. The second untruth is that CARES money didn't get to businesses. Repeated in a meeting yesterday was a stat Winsler Consulting mentioned a while back in January, which was that Citrus County had the 3rd highest percentage of CARES money distributed to private business entities of the 55 Florida counties that took state distributions of federal relief money. 3rd highest to small business relief. That's pretty darn good. And most of it was done through the county that took less than a percentage in staff overhead to distribute it. Again, could we have done better? Sure. I took issue with the distributions to the Chamber and to the United Way. The Chamber's allocation turned it into a nonprofit giveaway, as well as that horrible $1,000 new employee sign-on bonus program, while the United Way gave away $50,000 to the Education Foundation and only recently asked for their second distribution of $150,000, which is distributed at a 10% overhead. I do think both organizations, especially the United Way, did help some people who needed it right away, but both appeared to have been a massive overpay for the services rendered. The fact remains, though, our small business allocation, when compared to others, it was pretty good. On Saturday, the Chronicle had a sound-off section fully dedicated to people's opinions about an article written the previous week about Florida's involvement in U.S. border security. The only problem was none of the opinions were based in fact. Governor Ron DeSantis is sending 50 state law enforcement agents to Texas, and the Citrus County Sheriff's Office has offered to fill those vacancies here in Florida with their resources. Each of the sound-offs were about sending CCSO deputies to the Texas border, which is simply not at all what the plan is right now. And I want to let Chronicle reporter Buster Thompson off the hook here. He did include that bit of information in his story, albeit it was the second to last paragraph, and reporters rarely write their own headlines. So the headline that I called sensational or misleading at the time wouldn't be his fault. If you think about what the role of a newspaper is, it is to properly inform or correct misinformation. And if you see then how the sound off is used, you realize it is doing the opposite. This anonymous section of smut now routinely gets a half page or more, usually over multiple pages in print, while the editorial staff blames the commission for being unaccountable. If you think it's bad now, wait till the election cycle. And the real secret behind it all, the real truth chasing the lie around the world, isn't that the sound off is a place for the anonymous contributors not to be held accountable. It's that it is a way for the Chronicle to perpetuate narratives, regardless of their truths, against people they don't like without the paper being accountable. It's not our fault, the excuse might be. We just print what people say. I still believe in the mission of journalism. The expression I used above, although often misquoted, has become borderline cliche about the truth chasing a lie. Another cliche expression, if I can wrap up with that, would be it's what you do when no one else is looking that defines your character. To me, that's upholding professional industry standards. There are infrequent yet not insignificant times when the Chronicle stops acting like a newspaper in order to push the personal agenda of a few on the editorial board, and the sound off demonstrated one of these times on Saturday and will inevitably be used again in election season. People wonder why I don't like the newspaper, and that's an incredibly incomplete understanding of how I feel. I love the Chronicle. It's a community newspaper unrivaled by others. We're truly fortunate to have it. But it's who you are when you think no one is watching that defines character for me. That's all from the Bobby Winsler Show. Follow the Concurrent on social media for the latest updates and download our mobile app on both iPhone and Android platforms. We'll be back next Tuesday at noon. If you want to join this conversation, find us on social, the Concurrent Facebook, Twitter, or go to the Concurrent website, post on our discussion boards. Today's episode was sponsored by us. See you next week.